Welcome to the lecture on NCC topics. This is in fact lecture number 27 on NCC subjects, and of course we are discussing the topic of national integration. This is Captain Binoy Varakil, Associate NCC Officer, St. Joseph's College, Devgiri, Kozhikode, Kerala. In fact, the NCC cadets are, of course, the blessed group of youngsters of great India, because this great organization, NCC, National Cadet Corps, the largest youth organization, is, as I said in my previous lectures, is an ocean of opportunities to the young men and women of the greatest democracy of the world, India. And of course, this particular organization, a National Cadet Corps, is giving a chance to the young men and women to, of course, be an ideal citizen. I repeat, National Cadet Corps is making ideal citizens for the country and the world. So I would say each and every parent, each and every teacher, each and every citizen of India must encourage young men and women to, of course, join the greatest organization, National Cadet Corps, because the cadets, once a cadet, always a cadet, and the cadets of National Cadet Corps are growing, or they are just groomed, they are transformed into ideal citizens. How? Through the various NCC activities. There are lectures, there are different kind of trainings, and all these training activities and lectures help the cadets grow into ideal citizens. So no parent, no student must rethink or hesitate to join National Cadet Corps. We are discussing the big topic of national integration. And of course, in this particular topic, this vast topic of national integration, we are discussing the religions, cultures, traditions and customs of the great country India. And we have in the previous lectures discussed three of the major religions of India. We discussed Hinduism, we discussed Islam, we discussed, of course, in the previous lecture, Christianity. And today, in this particular lecture, we are discussing Jainism. And everybody knows the fact that Jainism, Hinduism and Buddhism are three of the most ancient religions. Alright, and still these three religions, Hinduism, Jainism and Buddhism, are in practice. And these three religions are, of course, integral part of many people in South Asia. They are practicing it because there is so much truth in these three religions, Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism. And we are focusing on Jainism. So we can see a lot of similarities among Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism. We are focusing on Jainism. So Jainism, as we understand, is of course an Indian religion which is of course teaching a path to spiritual purity and enlightenment through discipline. That is, of course, non-violence, discipline and non-violence, or ahimsa. So this is a religion which is advocating purity, spiritual purity and enlightenment. And people who believe in Jainism assert the fact that spiritual purity and enlightenment can only be achieved through disciplined ahimsa or non-violence. Let's just look at the very origin of the religion, that is of course Jainism. And now when we think of Jainism, we have to understand from where comes the term Jainism, and we have to understand the Sanskrit word Jai or Ji, which means to conquer. Jainism in fact derives the very name from Jaina, or in fact Jai, or of course the conqueror. And now we have to understand that this particular religion refers to, in fact, the ascetic battle. The Jain, or Jain refers to, of course, a monk or a nun in this particular religion. So Jainism refers to the ascetic battle that the monks and nuns of Jainism are engaged in, and theirs is, of course, a kind of renunciation. They are renunciating, or they are giving up, okay, certain bodily pleasures, passions and senses. So this Jainism is about renunciation, giving up the desires, passions of the body. And through this particular renunciation of the passions and the likes of the body, they are just going closer and closer to enlightenment, or what is known as omniscience, or what is known as Atma Shuddhi, or the purity of the soul. And Jainists believe that purity of the soul, or spiritual purity, can be achieved only through discipline, ahimsa. Now, of course, let us just know more about this particular religion. So, in fact, the founder of Jainism is believed to be Mahavira. And Mahavira, just belongs to a princely family in the place called Vaishali. So Mahavira belonged to a princely family of Vaishali, and he, at the age of 30, renounced the world, just abandoned the world, and spent 12 years in austerity and meditation. And these 12 years, Mahavira was searching for truth. So he was just leading a very austere life, just freeing himself from, just liberating himself from the lives of the world, the worldly pleasures. And through meditation and austerity, he reached truth, or he could understand truth. And at the age of 47, he just had what is called enlightenment. He was meditating and meditating and meditating, and after 12 years of continuous meditation, at the age of 47, he had enlightenment. Enlightenment refers to, of course, omniscience. Omniscience is Atma Shuddhi, or purity of the soul, and spiritual purity. So at the age of 47, Mahavira, the founder of Jainism, leading a life of austerity, had enlightenment, and he just continued to preach about the basic principles of Jainism. That is, of course, how an individual can have spiritual purity and enlightenment. And he insisted that anger, pride and deception and greed, these are the four elements that, of course, just keep us away from spiritual purity. So one has to free himself, give up, or just keep oneself away from these four negative emotions like anger, pride, deception and greed. These four things, like anger, pride, everybody knows what anger is. And of course we know that almost all the problems in the world, almost all the problems in the family, almost all the problems in personal relationship is created by anger. Anger is an evil. Then pride, egoism, arrogance, pride. So anger, pride, and the next thing is, of course, greed. Desire for worldly pleasure, desire for material things, and deception. When people become greedy, when people become, of course, angry, when people become proud, they deceive others because they just want to win over others. Competition is going on. Today also we can see a lot of competition. And Mahavir, after 12 years of contemplation, just had an enlightenment, and he told his followers that give up anger, give up pride, give up greed, give up deception. You shall be reaching closer to enlightenment. Besides this, of course, Mahavir just asked his followers to have virtues. And he spoke about 10 virtues. And he said that one must have these 10 virtues. With these 10 virtues, we can really have purity of soul, or spiritual purity, or enlightenment. And the virtues Mahavir spoke about, or the 10 virtues Jainism uphold, are: number 1, forgiveness. Forgive others, forgive everybody, forgive the mistake. Number 2, humility. We know the proverb, humility is the queen of wisdom. Humility is the queen of wisdom. Humility is the queen of virtues, right? Okay. So first virtue a monk or an individual must have for purity, spiritual purity, enlightenment, is forgiveness. Number 2, humility. Number 3, straightforwardness. One must be straightforward in his deeds, thoughts, and activities. Number 4, contentment. One has to be satisfied. One has to be content. But the problem today, of course, is right, nobody is satisfied. Everybody is in a kind of craze, right? Everybody is making a movement, right? On the move, or everybody is competing. Nobody is content. So without contentment, without satisfaction, you can never have enlightenment or purity of the soul. So Jainism is asking the followers to have 10 virtues. Number 1, forgiveness. Number 2, humility. Number 3, straightforwardness. Number 4, contentment. And number 5, truthfulness. I don't have to explain, because the father of the nation, Gandhiji, is just asking us to have satyagraha, or hold on to truth. So the 5th virtue the Jainists speak about is truthfulness. And the 6th is, of course, restraint, controlling ourselves, right? Harnessing our desires and emotions and thoughts and words. And number 7 is austerity, just being strict about everything, being austere, controlling ourselves again. Restraint and austerity go hand in hand. And the 8th virtue Jainism is advocating is purity. Purity in thought, purity in desires, purity in everything, physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual purity, leading us, taking us to enlightenment. And next is, of course, chastity. Chastity is, right, being pure again, physically, bodily, being pure is chastity. My body is the seat of God, so I have to keep it pure or chaste. That is chastity. And 10th virtue is renunciation, freeing ourselves from material world, liberating ourselves from the passion, or other, of course, right, the lies, or other the very desires of the body's renunciation. And through these 10 virtues, I repeat, through the 10 virtues of forgiveness, humility, straightforwardness, contentment, truthfulness, restraint, austerity, purity, chastity, and renunciation, one can have purity of soul, or spiritual purity and enlightenment. Okay, and in order to have all these virtues and enlightenment, one has to go steadily on path of liberation. And of course, one has to, of course, keep himself steady, always steady on the path of liberation. And one has to, of course, keep himself steady to fight against the evils of the society, so that, of course, we may have some kind of pain, right? It is not easy to lead a life, restraining ourselves, controlling ourselves, being humble, being, of course, chaste and all. So we will undergo a lot of pain while leading such a life of truthfulness, and all this pain one has to bear or suffer, and suffering is again part of the life of Jains, or other people who believe in Jainism. And the another very important thing about the followers of Jainism is they practice austerity. Austerity, that is of course right, controlling oneself completely, external and internal austerity. All right, so we may just we would like to have certain food which could be rather delicious. We could be rather hungry sometimes. We could be very thirsty sometimes. Right, we would be just wanting to have maybe of course right fashionable dress and all. Right, that is external. All right, and now when we control that, we are having external austerity, and internal austerity is right a lot of desires, lot of passion, lot of lights, lot of thoughts, lot of temptations will come from inside, internal, and all these internal desires, temptations must be controlled. That is internal austerity. So one has to have external austerity. All right, one should have internal austerity through these of course practices. All right, renunciation, austerity, and of course walking forward in search of the 10 virtues. One has to have what is called purity of soul, or what is called spiritual purity and enlightenment. And Jains, of course, they believe in non-violence or ahimsa. And today, of course, we can see that the world is, of course, disturbed by a lot of violent deeds within the family, in the society, in each and every state and different countries, of course, right? The world is being shattered and battered by, of course, a lot of problems. And one of the religions that can, of course, just solve maybe most of the issues of the world is, of course, right, Jainism. And we Indians are, of course, blessed to have such kind of noble religions like Hinduism, Jainism, Islam, Christianity, and of course next session we are discussing another great religion of ancient India, that is Buddhism. Okay, so we know most of the important points about Jainism right now. Okay, and with this all important 10 virtues and the most important way of life of austerity and renunciation, okay, we can have what is called enlightenment or purity of the soul. These are the fundamental principles and ideals of this great religion of the South Asia, that is of course of India. So thank you so much for listening. Let us just have a better India. Let's have a better world. Thank you so much for listening. May God bless you all. Jai Hind.